5 o'clock on the dot this Thursday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got some dry weather out there, but changes are coming. We'll tell you about it during the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Manhunt underway in Maine following a mass shooting, and the killer is still on the loose.
At least 20 people are believed to have been killed and dozens hurt in a shooting in Lewiston, Maine. Person of interest is still at large. He's been identified as 40-year-old Robert Card, a firearms instructor who was recently committed to a mental health facility. ABC News contributor Robert Frankel, a former FBI special agent, says
you now have law enforcement not only from Lewiston and Lisbon, Maine, but you have the state police, you have the federal officials, and now you have also New Hampshire police officers who are manning checkpoints at the border between Maine and New Hampshire because they really don't know where he is at this time.
And nearby residents are being told to shelter in place. The shootings occurred in a restaurant and at a bowling alley. Zoe Hutchinson was at the bowling alley with her mother, who says her daughter was grazed in the leg.
I never thought I'd grow up and get a bullet in my leg, and it's just like why? Like, why do people do this?
Yeah, Brian Clark reporting. Stay with Super Talk 99.7 WTN for continuing coverage. Later today in Middle Tennessee, the Rutherford County School Board's expected to vote on a resolution that will ask the legislature for a law that further punishes students who make threats against schools. School board member Tammy Sharp telling News 2 she went to State Representative Robert Stevens about it.
But it has to be something that's going to say, hey, we're going to take one of your privileges away if you do this. So he was the one that came up. He goes, well, let's tie it to the driver's license.
Sharp says she's looking to bring this resolution up to the county commissioners and the Tennessee School Board Association as well, that would revoke the driving privileges for any student making threats. Market Numbers Report. Market Numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Online at beaconcm.com. Here's Daria Albinger.
Stocks fell on big drops for tech companies. The Dow giving up 105 points, the Nasdaq down 319, and the S&P closing off 61. Google's parent company Alphabet fell sharply on worries about a slowdown in growth for its cloud computing business. Amazon, Nvidia, and Apple also fell, but it wasn't all bleak for tech. Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, reported better than expected third quarter numbers after the closing bell. The United Auto Workers may be getting closer to a tentative agreement with Ford, which could be a big step toward ending the strike against the Big Three. Two people with knowledge of the talks say the unions made a counteroffer to Ford, proposing a 25% general wage increase over the life of a new 4-year contract. Ford, Stellantis, and General Motors so far have offered 23% increases. Bitcoin's having another moment. The world's largest cryptocurrency soared to almost $35,000 this week, the highest value in nearly a year and a half.
All right, futures ahead of this morning's opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures down 71, S&P down 20, NASDAQ down 121. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Good morning. It is 5:06. It's Nashville's Morning News. Johnny B. in for Dan Mandis, who's taking the day off. You also have Ken Weaver in the newsroom, Mason Fleming flying the ship, and we're glad to have you with us on Nashville's Morning News, where you can get involved on the super text line at 615-737-9986. You can also watch us on Super Talk TV. You can catch that on Facebook Live, YouTube, X, formerly known as Twitter, Twitch, and, of course, 997WTN.com. A lot of you have been, you've been asking me what's going on with Dan. I can just tell you this. Dan has taken this time off to be with his family. I understand he did tell us on the air that his mother was having some health issues, and that's as far as we know. We don't know much else. We've just let him have his time with his family. Dan is going to return on Monday, and we look forward to that time. But I just wanted to answer you folks that were asking. But Dan himself is okay, and he's going to be back here on Monday morning. Look forward to his return, and just hope his mother's doing all right. And our thoughts and prayers are with Dan and his entire family, and hope everything is going okay. But just wanted to let you know what's going on there. And also now, again, we've got another mass shooting, this time in Maine. They're saying at least 22 people, I understand, were killed, and multiple others were wounded. This was yesterday at multiple locations, including a bowling alley and a bar in Lewiston, Maine. They said state and local police previously reported there had been an active shooter on Wednesday night. They were searching for the suspect at large, and they still are. And the gentleman they're looking for is a gentleman by the name of Robert Card. Apparently, Robert, he is a he trains folks in shooting, but he also has some problems with depression. They say that Robert Card, of course, is of Maine. He's a person of interest, and they're trying to locate him at this time. They don't know his whereabouts. Maine law enforcement bulletin shared with Fox News Digital stated that Card is a trained firearms instructor believed to be in the Army Reserve stationed out of Satco, Maine. Now, I hope I said that correctly. Bulletin also states that Card recently reported mental health issues, including hearing voices and threats to shoot up the National Guard base. So he has made it clear that he's having some problems. And this will bring up all kinds of discussions and debates about guns. And, of course, already the anti-gun folks are out, and we'll have more on that. But they say that Card was committed to a mental health facility for 2 weeks over the summer before he was released. They're saying that he should be considered armed and dangerous, and he is still on the loose, and we will keep you updated as we get them coming in from Maine. But Robert Card, they're trying to locate him, and our thoughts and prayers go out to all the people affected. And the thing that's hitting me is when someone has this serious of a mental health breakdown where they're hearing voices and they're talking about shooting up facilities, I would suggest that's probably a good time to take the guns away. And you know me, I'm not an anti-gun person. But it's also too early in this to start having this discussion, but it's already going to happen. It's already happened. There are the anti-gun protesters out there, and they've already spoken up in Maine. It's called Moms Demand Action. The founder is Shannon Watts, and she's already reacted to yesterday's shooting. She's criticizing the lack of gun control in the state, and she did so prior to a shooting suspect being apprehended or facts being known. And this is what she said. She said, Maine does not require background checks on all gun sales. have a red flag law, prevent domestic abusers from accessing guns, ban assault weapons, limit magazine capacity, require concealed carry permits, restrict open carry, having a waiting period. And see, my question to people like her, and I think it's a legitimate question, then what about places like California, which basically California is leading the country in gun deaths, and they have very strict gun laws. Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws in our country. They have shootings and killings every day. Why is this not brought up? And why is it never brought up of what kind of antidepressants was Mr. Card on? What were some of the side effects? But that will never be asked. And that's what really puzzles me. Because anytime I do ask that question, no. That has nothing. Yeah, it does. Yes, it does. Because it seems that every drug they make out there, and some of them do a lot of good. They do help people out. But a lot of them, too, have a lot of side effects. And sometimes the side effects are worse than what the drug that you're taking to try to treat something. The side effect is worse than what you're trying to treat. I can give you a personal example, and I will here in just a moment. But I'm just always amazed that it is never brought up. Anytime we have a mass shooter, what is causing this? Because we never used to have this problem. And it seems to be growing day by day. And it's not, you can't just say it's the gun. That's too easy. But that's the difference between the left and the right to me. The left always wants a quick solution. And there is no quick solution to anything. Some things, yes, but something like this, it's not a quick solution. It's something we really have to dive into. But I have noticed that a lot of the kids that have gone into schools and shot them up were on antidepressants. I'm sure this gentleman is on some kind of antidepressant. I'm not against antidepressants, but I do know that some of them have caused some serious side effects. One of those side effects, and which one was it? Zoloft used to have it in its ad with the, smiling, bouncing balloon-like creature going, if you have thoughts of suicide, please contact your doctor immediately. But wait a minute, I thought that's what Zoloft was supposed to be treating, to keep you from doing that. But I'm going to tell you a little quick story. I'll try to make it as quick as I can, about a drug I was given that had side effects I wasn't even told about. I found out all on my own. That's why I say we need to look at some of these drugs a little closer than we are. I'll talk gun control with you if you want to talk about prescription drugs and their side effects. It's 5:15, time to check the roads at Paul Winkler, WTN Traffic Center. Amen. Thank you, Jack. It looks like it's going. If you liked yesterday and the day before, you're going to love today. Partly cloudy, high near 80. Right now it is 60 degrees, clear skies on Nashville's Music Row, right near the naked statue. That's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk continues all day long, by the way. Chris Hand at 9 a.m., I do believe, and then 12 noon, Murphy Show. And then you get to go home with Brian Wilson with The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Talking about this unfortunate, horrible mass shooting in Maine. The suspect is still on the run, the person of interest. with Robert Card of Maine, and Shannon Watts, who is Moms Demand Action founder in Maine, has already come out and is going after basically guns. But my deal has always been about the side effects of drugs and a lot of these antidepressants that people are on. And it sounds like Robert's got some serious issues that need to be dealt with, and he probably is on something, and I would like to find out what and what those side effects are. Now, see, I drive doctors crazy because anytime they try to prescribe me a new drug, the first thing out of my mouth is, well, what are the side effects? And sometimes the doctors are nice. Sometimes the doctors roll their eyes. You can tell they did not want to be asked this question. But I was recently put on a drug, and it will kind of explain like why I was out a couple of weeks ago. I wasn't even going to broach this, but I thought I would with this subject. But I was given a new drug. It's not a new drug, actually. It's been on the market for years, hydralazine, for blood pressure. Because for some reason in my family, we cannot get our blood pressure down. Once you get to a certain age, I don't care how much we walk, how much we exercise, how much we eat right, the blood pressure is always high. And so my cardiologist prescribed me this drug, hydralazine. Now, I did ask him about the side effects. He only told me about 2. Well, about a month later, a month after taking this, all of a sudden, and I hate to gross you out, but I had blood in my urine. And I grew quite concerned about it, of course. And so I went to Vanderbilt Walk-In Clinic. And the doctor there agreed with me that it was probably the drug, because he said the drug does have tendency to make, to give people problems that bleed easily because, I have to take a blood thinner. Anyway, after doing that, this was the crazy thing. I'm getting off balance here, but here's the crazy thing. When I went to this walk-in clinic, they said, well, you shouldn't still be having blood in your urine if you quit taking the pill, because I just quit taking it about 5 days before I went into the clinic. And anyway, they tell me this might be cancer. And so I had to live with that for a day. And so I'm thinking I have cancer. Well, then they had to give me an antibiotic there was a infection that the blood had caused. So I had to get an antibiotic to take care of that. When I took the antibiotic, the pain was unbelievable. Totally unbelievable. I mean, it was the worst pain I've ever felt. And every time I would take the antibiotic, it just got worse. So I ended up going to the emergency room. And so then it was like night and day with these doctors. This doctor didn't agree with me about hydralazine, which I still disagree with him about that. But he also rolled his eyes when I said about the cancer. He said, you don't have cancer, because they did a thorough check. He thought it was a kidney stone. It wasn't. I'm telling you, it was the hydralazine. But I can't find doctors to agree on that. Some doctors agree, some don't. And there are 4 pages of people that are complaining about what hydralazine does to their bodies. My stepmother even had lupus type it was like she had lupus, and she was taking hydralazine, got off of it. So that's what I'm trying to say is, I think these drugs I think affect people differently, and I think we need to really seriously look at the side effects of some of these drugs that are used for depression, that are used for different problems like that, for mental health. Because if these side effects are that dangerous, where they do make people go off the rails, and I think some do, I think we need to be made more aware of it. And I would agree with Shannon Watts that maybe there should be some guidelines for people that have the serious problems that Mr. Card is suffering from. I hope this situation gets solved quickly, and we'll keep you abreast of what's happening in Maine with that, and just hope that everything gets solved very quickly. But I hope that common sense takes over and we quit screaming at one another about guns, and let's really seriously look at why people are doing this. It's 5:22. It's Nashville's Morning News. Johnny B. in for Dan Mandis this morning. And we got the gang of three amigos coming up at 5:35. We'll get into a little lighter mood and get our minds off of all this craziness going on in the world right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey everybody, Dan Mandis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
A Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. Which one should we do? A lot of people struggle over this particular decision. And I'll just give you a couple tools to figure out what might be better for you. Think about it this way. Let's say if I had $1,000 that I was thinking about investing, that was income, $1,000 of income. With an IRA, let's say that you're in a 30% tax bracket. Let's say there is such a thing. And you want to put this money in an IRA. You're going to save $300 in taxes. Now, if you go post-tax with like a Roth IRA, this is how much goes into the Roth IRA. Now, let's say that later on down the road, we have this money and it didn't grow at all, just to keep the math really simple. And let's say that at some point in the future, you're in a lower tax bracket, because the way our tax system works is that your first income is taxed at a really low rate, and then you get up into higher rates, 10%, 12%, 22%, and so on and so forth. It gets higher. If you're earning income and you're at that particular tax rate up there, you might want to avoid that tax rate right now and take the income at a later point in time when you're in a lower average tax rate. Now let's say that you're in a 10% bracket down here when you pull the money. How much are you going to pay in taxes? 10% of $1,000 is $100. How much do you get to spend? $900. Well, even though I didn't have growth, I had growth because of the difference between my tax rate here and here. And that's the idea. That's one of the things that we look at. We look at Social Security taxation, income taxation, and a lot of factors that might drive you in a higher or lower brackets in the future. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
Death toll now up to at least 22 in the Maine mass shooting and manhunt. Here in Middle Tennessee, a suspect's in custody for a drive-by shooting Sunday that sent bullets into an innocent family's home. And there's a new speaker in town. These stories and more at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
We got a new speaker in town. We don't even know if it's a GBL or a JBL or not. Bad joke, sorry. Trying to be like Dan, be funny. 528, good morning. You are listening to Nashville's Morning News. Dan Mandis off today, but he is returning on Monday, and we're going to be glad to see him come back. Go to the Super Text line, and looking at 2123, who has pretty much right on information here. Hearing voices is schizophrenia, which it is. I called it, see, my deal is I call everything depression. But I put it under one umbrella. But it is schizophrenia, and that's true. And not being on a medication leads to episodes of psychosis. Being on only an antidepressant without an antipsychotic will cause problems. And that's very true. I've had members, or I'd say a member of my family that was on such drugs, but even those two drugs didn't help. So that's what I'm trying to say is that you just never know with prescription drugs of what the side effects are going to be. But anyway, we're going to lighten things up a little bit. We've got a lot of things to cover in the Gang of Three Amigos, including a birthday today. Oh boy, I don't know if you'll be excited though. Time for the news now though. It's 5:30 and it's Ken Weaver with the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
5:30 on the dot this Thursday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. The dry run of weather's going to continue, but there are changes to tell you about. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Maine mass shooting manhunt continuing coverage. Here's James Corrigan outside a hospital in Lewiston.
Things remain tense here at Central Maine Medical Center. Still a large law enforcement presence. It's been airtight. You've seen law enforcement patrolling this area with assault rifles in hand. They've been leading people in and out of the building. There are even nurses just going to their cars and coming back. They've been accompanying them.
Person of interest in this is Robert Card. He's on the loose after authorities say at least 22 people now have died when a gunman opened fire at a bar and then traveled and opened fire at a bowling alley in Maine. Here in Tennessee, an 18-year-old is in custody for the drive-by shooting that sent bullets into a family's home in Spring Hill Sunday afternoon. Police have not released the teen's name, but say he was there with others for illicit reasons before the shooting started. No one in the home was hurt, but bullets came within inches of a mother's head as she was tending to a baby. And an end could be near for the strike at Ford Motor. Here's Union President Sean Fain.
We reached a tentative agreement with Ford. For months, we've said that record profits mean record contracts. And UAW family, our stand-up strike has delivered.
It would include a 25% pay raise when Ford was offering 9%. Still no deal with GM and Stellantis. And in our nation's capital, Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson's the new House Speaker.
The first vote under Speaker Johnson yesterday was a resolution supporting Israel. The House must also take up funding for Ukraine, something Johnson has questioned in the past. Another crucial task is a looming government shutdown, with government funding set to expire November 17th.
That's Andrea Fujii reporting, and the latest news, traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed the deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath, do this one thing for me. Say, won't you take me back to Tennessee? home in Tennessee. Right at home in the woods of Tennessee. Right at home in Tennessee. Awesome.
Buenos dias, mi amigos. It is 5:39. It's on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Nashville's Morning News. Time for the gang of three amigos in the newsroom. Brother Ken Weaver is here. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning, boys. Yes.
And in the Johnny B, in Studio B, it's Mason Fleming. Good morning, Mason. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate the invite back.
Hey, man, every time you come on back, boy, we love you. And, of course, you got Johnny B here in for Dan Mandis, who's taking care of some family business this week. He will be back on Monday. We look forward to seeing him and hope everything's going okay out in California.
California, as they say.
That's right, Ken. Well, before we get started, I had a special request. There's a birthday today. They wanted a special singer for this. I guess it would be good to turn on the audio. But anyway, a special birthday singing.
Happy birthday, dear Alan. Happy birthday, dear Alan.
Hey, man, guess whose birthday it is today? No, it's not mine. Today is Hillary's birthday. 76 years old today up there in Chappaqua.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Hope the ice cream doesn't fall in the dirt.
I think it's so chilly in that house, there's no way.
Wonder if Bill's going to be there.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I'll send her a card.
Yeah.
Maybe just shoot her an email. Hopefully it doesn't get lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about the cake.
We'll have Dan deliver it.
Yeah.
My wife's making you one right now, Hill.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is her birthday today. And also in this day in history, 20 years ago, I remember this very well. George W. Bush signed the post 9/11 Patriot Act into law. And man, I remember it was me and Pamela Furr. We were sitting in on the Phil Valentine show. And we were, because when you read the Patriot Act, it was quite disturbing. And so we were reading it and criticizing it. And man, that was my first encounter with, we always knew you were a liberal. You're a communist, ain't you, Johnny? So anyway, that's some digs in the history. I know Ken's got some cool stuff to share with us. So before he does, I want to share these with you guys. We've been talking a lot. We talked about a woman that won in Kentucky. Lotto won twice this year. Twice, not once, twice. Well, this was a Massachusetts man by the name of Khalil Sosa. Mr. Sosa lost $1 million winning lottery ticket. Lost it.
Goodness.
But the house cleaner found the ticket in a vase, gave it back to him. He claimed it and found out it was a winner. He claimed the prize. Claims he's going to donate some winnings to charity. I would say I would donate some winnings to the house cleaner.
Yeah.
I was about to say.
What was the ticket doing in a vase?
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know.
I think I would have remembered that.
I think I would have too.
Where did I put that big winning ticket?
To be fair, I have a tendency to forget stuff like that too. I've worked in a tip-based job for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
I put away some money in a little container that I completely forgot about for I think 2 years. I had $500 in there that I was supposed to take and use for some car repair stuff, and I totally forgot where I put it and was like, oh my gosh, I've just misplaced $500. And I luckily found it when I was moving houses and was like, oh, I wonder what's in here. And just money poured out of it. And I was like, it is my lucky day.
That's a good feeling, isn't it?
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Where'd you find it at?
It was in a little container for those Star Wars fans out there. I have a little lightsaber that I have a case of. And it was tucked underneath the lightsaber. And I was like, I'll remember where that is. It's Star Wars themed. That's my favorite, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
completely forgot.
You forgot.
Mason, the Force led you to it.
That's right.
Yeah, it was a nice little surprise for sure.
Did it have a picture of Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader on it?
No, but it was under Darth Vader's lightsaber, so I guess that makes it a little better.
That's a good story, Brother Mason. I used to get excited whenever I'd pull my visor down in high school and a $20 bill would fall out of it. Yeah, because I just I didn't have a billfold or anything as a teenager. I just put stuff in my pockets. Or I'd, have some cash and just stick it somewhere in my car and pull the visor down, a $20 bill falls down.
I get excited if I find a quarter or anything. I mean, finding random money is always a treat for sure.
Right. Well, here's a fella in New York who decided to access his safety deposit box inside a high-security vault in a jewelry store on Fifth Avenue, and he got trapped inside.
Once the door is closed after 7 o'clock, it locks automatically.
Yeah, that's the Deputy Assistant Fire Chief John Sirocco, who says an employee said, well, it's 5 o'clock quitting time. It's time to shut things up.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Not knowing that this fella was in there looking through his security box.
Oh, man.
So fire crews show up there, and they tried to cut through the concrete walls that are more than 2 feet thick, but they eventually gave up. They had to wait until the vault reopened automatically the next day.
Oh, man.
30 inches or so of concrete. We started doing that. We got to the point where we got to the metal plating. The problem with the plating is we'd have to use our torches on there, which would infect the environment of that person inside the vault.
Yeah, so apparently you don't want to go heating up the metal plating when somebody's in the vault because maybe it would have cooked him.
Wow.
So they just had to wait until the next morning. Now, I would have been worried. I guess maybe they can pump. There's probably some vents or something like that.
Probably.
Because people go in there to, check their money.
Well, speaking of going, it was overnight, was it not?
Yes.
So I'm sure he had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, because this was at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So this is 5 o'clock in the evening. Now, I don't know what time they open up in the morning.
Yeah.
But, this fella, there might be more to the story there, Brother Johnny, as you brought up.
I didn't find any gold bricks, but
found a couple Lincoln logs.
Oh, man, that's awful.
Just need to check those lock boxes a little more just to make sure.
Just a little more.
Goodness. Now, see, I would have been freaking out because I don't like being in enclosed spaces like that, not being able to get out.
No, me either.
Even though I know people are going to be, people are there and they're aware, that still would freak me out.
Well, that's why sometimes I can't even watch prison movies. Because I think of, like something like Shawshank Redemption.
Right.
Because just the thought of being incarcerated.
Yes.
Oh, Lord.
I bet you the next time this guy goes to the safety deposit box, high security vault, he probably brings something with him like a door stopper.
I was about to say.
Or a big bucket.
Yeah, just a big bucket, something to block that door. Either that or he just starts whistling or singing loudly.
Yes.
To let people know, hey, I'm in here.
I'm still here.
Don't shut the door on me.
Don't. Ken, too, I was thinking about you this morning. I don't know if you saw this, but there was a record-breaking fish caught in Texas.
Where?
Have you seen this?
In Texas.
Yes, sir.
Big old fish.
The name was the guy's name is Captain Kirkland.
Captain Kirkland in Texas.
Served as a guide to Art Weston. So Art Weston is the one who caught it.
Okay.
He reeled in a 283-pound alligator gar on September 2nd.
283 pounds.
They wrestled with the beast for 2 hours and 45 minutes. They finally got him on board. They said that they never realized how big the fish was till they got him in the boat. It is huge.
Yeah, and that's... Yeah, it looks like an alligator with fins.
Yes.
An alligator gar will slice you up, man.
Yeah, and they are as old as the dinosaurs.
Yeah. Wow, look at that thing.
Yeah.
At first he probably thought, boy, this is a big old catfish. Oh, we got to get this thing in.
There's going to be some good eating tonight.
Wow.
Hey, that thing's huge.
Wonder what he caught it on.
He said, let's see, it was a 6-pound line.
It says it left him shaking and visibly fatigued.
I bet it did.
A severe rope burn on his palms after he had to lasso the beast, as he put it.
Wow.
Hey, he wasn't going to let this thing go.
Oh, and it broke the 6-pound line.
Oh, well, yeah. Six-pound line?
It broke the 6-pound line class record. I'm sorry.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
I'm sorry.
8 feet long.
Yes.
8 feet 4 inches long.
Yes.
I wonder, have you ever seen the teeth on an alligator gar?
I have not.
There are thousands of them.
Wow.
I mean, I say thousands. Sure, yeah. I'm exaggerating, but I mean just a lot of tiny, just razor sharp teeth.
Well, apparently this gentleman isn't going to stop here. He wants to get an even bigger one.
Holy cow. How do you get bigger than that?
He said, yeah.
I mean, going after whales or actual sharks now, or?
No, he wants to go after the same kind of fish, just a bigger one.
Just a newer record.
Yeah,
wow.
Because he's broken, with this one catch, he broke 4 records.
Well,
That's wild.
He hasn't broken the record, though, boys. Apparently, the largest recorded alligator gar ever caught weighed 327 pounds.
Wow.
So he's got almost 50. He's got 50 more pounds to go.
I wonder what state that was in.
Let's see. That's for the fish died not long after commercial fisherman Kenny Williams reeled him in at a lake in Mississippi. Chottard Lake, Lake Chotard or Lake Chottard, Chotard.
Okay.
That was back in 2011.
Oh, wow.
He caught the fish accidentally.
Kind of like this guy.
Yeah, got caught in a net he had put out to catch another type of fish. He's just throwing out nets, catching fish.
I like stories like that,
and in comes an alligator gar. Wow.
And a big one at that.
Yeah.
He caught the biggest one.
I'll have to post that. I'm going to post that to our socials so everybody can see it.
Yeah, it's worth seeing, man. That fish is huge.
Yeah, they're prehistoric. Those things
they
are. They've been around for a while.
Yeah, they've been here since the dinosaurs, so.
We should Photoshop ourselves in pretending to hold the fish for him. We were there. We did that, not him.
Send it to Dan and say, we promise we've been working.
Yeah.
We've been at work, Dan.
We took the show on the road.
I swear to God, Dan, we really have. Anyway, thanks, guys. It's been a lot of fun. And coming up, man, there's so much in the news to cover. The UAW, well, they struck a deal with Ford. We'll tell you about that. Also, the Democrats are going out of their minds with the new Republican speaker. We'll have that as well. And, man, everybody is freaking out about climate change. And we'll talk about that, too, because that one's driving me nuts. It's 5:52. You're listening to Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The death toll is climbing in Maine as that manhunt continues. Middle Tennessee school districts pushing another penalty for students who make threats. These stories and more at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Brother Ken. We got a super text from 1509. He has a picture of a small alligator gar that got him on Pickwick Lake in Alabama.
Yeah.
Boy, it sliced him up, man.
Oh, yeah.
Sharp teeth on those dudes.
Yeah, they take after their name. That is for sure.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't want to catch one, I don't think.
No, sir. No, sir. But if you get something that big, you've got to get it in.
Yeah, you better.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Good, this guy lassos it. Throws a rope down on it. But he should have had some gloves.
Yeah.
Because apparently his hands are really burnt up from that rope.
Oh, I bet they are. And they also, and then we have Michael who texts in. He said the teeth of the gar project out of the mouth.
Yes.
They don't always point inside.
Yeah,
so
they're all over the place. It's like a saw. Like a saw that you've run across Curly's head. Remember in the Three Stooges, they'd run a saw across his head, and then they'd show the saw, and the teeth would be pointed all over the place.
I love your description of things, Ken. That's why I love this job. I love working with you guys.
You too, Brother Johnny B and Brother Mason.
Coming up in the next hour, you won't believe the Democrats are losing their mind over the new Republican speaker. We'll get into that story coming up. We'll keep you updated, too, on the shooting in Maine and that suspect still at large. We'll keep you up to date with Ken with the news coming up in just mere moments. Right where you've got it, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Six o'clock on the dot this Thursday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. There is a cool down coming. We'll tell you about it during the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. The death toll is climbing in Maine.
Authorities in Maine searching by air and on the ground for Robert Card. He is described as a person of interest in Wednesday night's mass shooting in Lewiston. At least 20 people are believed to be dead. Shootings occurred in a restaurant and at a bowling alley. Riley Dumont was at the bowling alley with her daughter.
I see a lot of the good in people in this world. Like, I give everybody a chance, and this is something that will change me and my daughter's life forever. And it's very sad.
ABC's Rihanna Nally has more on the person of interest who was committed to a mental health facility after saying he was hearing voices.
Authorities say before being treated at that mental health facility over the summer, Robert Card threatened to carry out a shooting at a National Guard facility in Saco, Maine.
As Maine State Police continues the search, they have expanded the advisory to shelter in place and close schools to the nearby town of Bowdoin.
As Brian Clark reporting, stay with Super Talk 99.7 WTN for continuing coverage of that Maine massacre. Later today in Middle Tennessee, the Rutherford County School Board is expected to vote on a resolution asking for a state law to further punish students who make threats against schools. School Board member Tammy Sharp tells News 2 she went to State Representative Robert Stevens about it.
But it has to be something that's going to say, hey, we're going to take one of your privileges away if you do this. So he was the one that came up. He goes, well, let's tie it to the driver's license.
Yeah, Sharp says she's looking to bring this resolution up to the county commissioners and the Tennessee School Board Association as well. Market Numbers Report. Market Numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. BeaconCM.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
Investors' early gains were erased during the course of the trading day. The Dow Jones finished Wednesday 105 points lower, still barely above 33,000. The S&P lost nearly 1.5%. Disappointing corporate earnings from tech firms dragged down the NASDAQ composite by almost 2.5%. A tentative 4-year deal reached between Ford and striking auto workers includes a 25% pay hike, putting top wages at about $40 per hour. It also reinstates cost of living adjustments, cuts the time it takes new hires to reach the top wage, and gives workers the right to strike over plant closings. Talks continue at General Motors and Chrysler parent Stellantis in the 6-week-old walkout. Members of the American Association of Professional Flight Attendants held an informational picket at DFW Airport Wednesday, demanding a 33% pay raise and better work-life balance. The association represents 26,000 American Airlines employees. Members are threatening a work stoppage around Christmas.
All right, let's check futures ahead of this morning's opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures down 116, S&P down 25, NASDAQ futures down 128. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
That's what it is. It's Nashville's Morning News at 6:07. Good morning, Johnny B. in for Dan Mandis, who's off this week. He will return on Monday morning. We'll look forward to that. Ken Weaver's along with us in the newsroom, and of course, flying this ship is none other than Mason. And we're glad to have you with us. 615-737-9986. That's the Super Text number. You can get involved with us there. You can also watch on Super Talk TV. See people that should be, well, without cameras. You can go to Super Talk TV on Facebook Live, YouTube, X, formerly known as Twitter. You also have Twitch and SuperTalk997WTN.com. You can watch it there. We are keeping our ears and eyes open about what's going on in Maine. Mass shooting up there. There is a person of interest in this, and it's in Lewiston, Maine, which is about 35 miles north of Maine's largest city, which is Portland. And the gentleman they are looking at, or they're trying to find, is Robert Card. He's the perfect person of interest. And Ken will have more details as they become available to us. In fact, he can break in at any time and let us know what's going on up there. But unfortunately, Mr. Card is still at large. Over 20 people killed and numerous more injured in this mass shooting. I think there were several locations that this gentleman went to, this suspect. And so we'll keep you up to date on what happens up in Maine with that. Also, the Republicans have a new speaker. I know it's hard to believe, but it's finally happened. It's Representative Mike Johnson of Louisiana. We talked about him yesterday. And he got the votes after they, of course, ousted former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And the first thing that they did with Mike Johnson was a successful resolution to support Israel in its war against Hamas. But I think that's going to be the easy part of his job. It's going to get a lot harder because, well, Democrats are finding out more and more about Representative Mike Johnson. He's pretty far right. He's pretty far right, and it's beginning to scare them a little bit. It's beginning to look a lot like they're scared. Anyway, they are. What was interesting to me was CNN anchor Jake Tapper. He was on CNN's News Central, and they were talking about the newly elected House Speaker, Johnson. And Tapper said, I've known Mike Johnson for about 18 years. He said, I covered story in Louisiana back in 2005. He said there was a parish that kept on bringing Christian priests into their parish to do school prayer, even though courts kept on telling them not to do so. And the ACLU kept on challenging the school district in that parish to stop. Basically, what Jake has said is that his ideology is very far to the right. He's very conservative. He's a true believer, which means he's a Christian. And it will be very interesting to see if that's a liability for him, given the fact that I think the center of his party is actually probably not as conservative as him. The center of the country is certainly much more closer to the center. I don't know that it will be a liability for him at all. It will be interesting to see. And it will be. I have to disagree with Jake Tapper, though. I think the majority of the country is in the middle, but I think they skew a little to the right. I don't think they skew a little to the left. They're in the middle. I think the majority of the country is middle and a little bit to the right. That's just how I see it. It's going to be interesting to see how Representative Mike Johnson plays with everyone. The thing that from some of the videos I've watched of him and how he handles himself, I think he's probably a good pick because he keeps his cool. And the reason he keeps his cool is that he's very sure of himself as far as what he believes. He believes it to the core. And he has facts to back him up. And when that happens, you find someone that is easy to deal with. And I think that's why I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this was a great choice, because from what I've seen, this guy doesn't get excited. He doesn't get angry. He's very matter of fact, very plain spoken. And he is very much a Christian. And I think people on the right have been looking for someone like this for a while. But what I'm trying to say is when it comes time to negotiate, I think he's going to be very good, because I don't think they can shake him. I don't think they'll be able to rattle him. I think he's secure enough in his own wherewithal to handle the job very well. But we'll just have to wait and see. But the Democrats are absolutely losing their minds. And that alone is beginning to make me believe that he was a great choice. Because they are starting to really lose their minds over this guy. And especially because, well, a certain Donald J. Trump really likes this guy too. Another thing that's going to drive them absolutely batty. But we'll have more on that story in just a moment. We've got, and I'm going to prove to you, with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, this was from the Daily Show a couple of days ago, earlier in the week. This is before that Mike Johnson was named Speaker. And I'm telling you, it's proof that this was probably a great move. Because if they're that bothered by what's going on, then we're in great shape. This was good news to me today. Great news. It's going to be interesting to see what Speaker Johnson gets done. And I wish him all the best. But I'll tell you more about what's driving the Democrats crazy about him and what AOC had to say about the whole process. I found it very comical. It's coming up on Nashville's Morning News at 6:15. Time to check the roads with the Paul Winkler WTN Traffic Center. Thank you so much, Jack. Look for partly cloudy skies once again today. Carbon copy of the last couple of days. High will be near 80 degrees, around 81 actually, 59 degrees and clear right now in Nashville's Music Row. And from what I see, it looks like we'll probably get some rain, hopefully, by the first of next week. And then I think around Tuesday and Wednesday, highs only in the 50s and lows near freezing. Ooh. In fact, one night they predict 30 degrees. So, yeah, colder weather's moving in. Isn't that going to be fun and exciting? Not. But anyway, the Democrats are really melting out over Johnson, Speaker Johnson. According to an emailed statement posted to X by Punchbowl News founder Jake Sherman, President Joe Biden's 2024 campaign strongly condemned the election of Mr. Mike Johnson as Speaker, despite Biden's congratulations in an official statement from the White House. He and his wife thanked him and then put out a statement saying it was a bad move. He said, MAGA, boy, that's a big thing. Now everything's going to be MAGA. MAGA Mike Johnson's ascension to the speakership cements the extreme MAGA takeover of the House Republican Conference, a spokesman for the Biden campaign said in a statement. And, of course, this was in total contrast to Joe Biden offering his and First Lady Jill Biden's congratulations to Johnson and their commitment to try to work in good faith. Right. Democrats in Congress are expressing deep displeasure with Johnson securing the speaker's gavel on the first ballot. So they're not happy at all. In fact, Representative Katie Porter out of California, Democrat, of course, called Johnson an insurrectionist. My God, he's got everything against him. He's MAGA. He's an insurrectionist. Insurrectionist. And this is what she had to add to it. Insurrectionist Mike Johnson is now second in line to the presidency. The American people deserve better. Thank you, Katie. And of course, Representative Ilhan Omar had to weigh in as well. She labeled him a MAGA extremist. No, I think you're the extremist, Ms. Omar. She also wrote that his achievements include seeking an abortion ban and voting against LGBTQ rights. What I found interesting, and this was before all of this transpired, but AOC went on The Daily Show. And even though this was lighthearted and she was trying to be funny and all this, I kind of read between the lines that Democrats were worried, I do believe. But this was her take on, she was trying to explain to The Daily Show on what was going on with the Republicans and trying to get a speaker.
So Republicans kicked out their speaker, and now they can't find a new guy to run their group project.
Yes. I give her credit. She's at least trying to be cute and got a funny guffaw out of the crowd. But that was her simple way of trying to be funny about what was going on with the Republicans. She added this.
We need to make sure that we don't have people like Jim Jordan or extremists, because whoever takes over the House could potentially put our democracy in danger when it comes to certifying or recertifying an election.
It's
and
a
so
republic.
On.
Okay, number one, and I'm not going to do this every time, but everybody's throwing around that this is a democracy. It's actually a representative republic. It's what the United States is. But the Democrats are real big on saying that that's a democracy. But that was what was really intriguing to me. We don't want someone like a Jim Jordan. Well, I think they've got someone more dangerous than a Jim Jordan, because Jim Jordan, he can get a little spicy. He can have a temper tantrum. The thing with Mike Johnson that I've not seen anywhere where this guy loses his cool or gets angry, gets upset. He's a cool cucumber. And that is far more dangerous to the Democrats than someone that is a firebrand, somebody that's a hothead, so to speak. I think they're going to be more scared of this guy than they are of anyone. But she had this last thing to add at The Daily Show.
I will say, from when Republicans took over to now, they provided a lot of meme content.
Yes.
But before that, when Democrats were in the majority, we passed the largest climate package in American history.
Okay. Yeah, you did. And you about wrecked our economy. That's all they can be proud of. Left-leaning, insane bills. Trying to mandate electric cars. Trying to tell you that you can't have a gas stove. The climate change thing is getting ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. And we're going to go into that in the next half hour, because it's really starting to ramp up. People are getting worried about climate change. Folks, I'm telling you, you need to watch Al Gore's documentary. I know it'd be tough. It's a tough homework assignment because the movie sucks. But the thing is, watch everything he predicts in it. None of it came true. None of it. It's time to stop following this goofy religion of climate change. But we'll get into more of that with Nashville's Morning News coming up. And we'd like you to get involved too. 615-737-9986. That's the super text line. You can text us and we will read them, and we'll read some of them on the air. So you're part of the show. And we'll have a lot more coming up on Nashville's Morning News, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
Entire towns being advised to shelter in place after 20 are believed to be dead in the latest mass shooting. Middle Tennessee School District going above and beyond what is required for keeping students safe. A new speaker in charge and some money news coming up on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Brother Ken. It is 6:29, Nashville's Morning News. And looking at the super text line, oh, I love this one. From 1538, we were talking about, we played some sound from AOC where she said the Republicans basically just did a lot of great memes during their time. And 1538 says, a meme content? This coming from the queen of meme content. Very true. Coming up, we'll have more on this story as well as others. And, of course, right now it's time for the news with Ken Weaver on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30 on the dot this Thursday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We're being told another cool down is on the horizon. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. There's a massive manhunt after a mass shooting in Maine. You got a police helicopter looking for Robert Card, the person of interest, after at least 20 people are believed to have been shot and killed, first at a bar, then at a bowling alley overnight. Right now in Middle Tennessee, Rutherford County Schools working to get all of its employees trained on what to do during a threat. Channel 4's Ryan Breslin says even substitute teachers, although they're not required to have that training.
They've already sent a letter to state lawmakers about wanting to require this. Now, they would want to train substitute teachers on lockdowns and school security training by March of next year. They also say for any new substitutes that they hire, they would want them to get that training within 60 days of that hiring date.
Rutherford County Schools says they have substitutes in their schools on a daily basis. Right now in our nation's capital, Rachel Scott says new House Speaker Mike Johnson got down to business immediately after being sworn in.
One of the first orders of business for the House to consider is the president's request for additional funding to both Israel and Ukraine. A growing number of Republicans say they only want funding for Israel, not Ukraine. Speaker Johnson not committing to putting that package on the floor for a vote.
Yeah, there's also another possible government spending shutdown in less than a month. And we got another gauge on the economy due out this morning.
The gross domestic product comprises all of the goods and services the U.S. produces in a certain period of time. In this case, the third quarter from July to September. The Institute for Economic Research is predicting 3.4% growth, which would be a big jump from the second quarter's 2.1%. The Fed will take the GDP into consideration when it decides what to do with interest rates.
Yeah, that's Daria Albinger reporting, and the latest news, traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath, do this one thing for me. Say, won't you take me back to Tennessee, where southern streams are flowing free. Me and mine, Lord, will always be right at home in Tennessee. Right at home in the woods of Tennessee. Right at home in Tennessee. Awesome.
6:38. It's Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Dan Mandis has got some time off. He will be back on Monday. You have Ken Weaver in the newsroom, Mason Fleming driving the ship, Johnny B sitting in for Dan, and we'll have you on board with us as well. You can get involved with Super Text 615-737-9986. We read them all. We try to answer some, and we try to have some on the air. We do the best we can. We appreciate you choosing us to fly with on this morning. A lot going on in the news, of course, and right now we are monitoring what's going on up in Maine. We've had a mass shooting up there, and they're looking for the man of interest, who is Robert Card of Maine, and police are still actively looking for him. Some reports are saying over 20 people were killed and many more were injured by this man. And we'll have details as soon as they come in. And anytime Ken Weaver wants to break in, if he has anything new, he most certainly can. We appreciate that. Other things happening in the news as well. California, they've put brakes on the driverless taxis. They say their Department of Motor Vehicles have suspended permits for the operation of a driverless taxi service, citing pedestrian safety concerns. They say 2 pedestrians were injured in separate accidents involving a robo-taxi during the 3 months that the service operated, according to CNBC. That does not surprise me very much. Also, this doesn't surprise me either. They say about 545,000 New Yorkers have left the city for other cities in 2022. This is from the U.S. Census Bureau. Said far fewer, about 300,000, moved to New York from elsewhere. Most of the New Yorkers who left town relocated to Florida, New Jersey, or Connecticut. A study by Siena College suggests that a third of New Yorkers wish they lived elsewhere, given the city's high cost of living and rising crime rate. And, who could blame them for that? Also, the first major snowstorm of the season, falling in the northern Cascades and the Rockies this week. The storm's path is expected to move across northern Idaho and on into Montana, northwestern Wyoming, and North Dakota through tomorrow morning. So I guarantee you this, what's going to happen, this is going to start the climate change talk again. Because this always happens. And in fact, it's in the news today. A large majority of Americans believe that the climate crisis, because everything's a crisis, is now causing harm to people in the U.S. I can't believe we're still talking about this, but we are. Almost as many believe that the harm will get worse in their lifetimes. This is a new result from a new survey from the Pew Research Center. Poll results show a deep political divide, which does not surprise me at all. As far as the Democrats are concerned, about 86% of them expect negative climate impacts to get worse in their lifetimes. As far as Republicans go, just 37% thought the same. And why any Republican would believe in climate change is beyond me. I've been covering this because I've been kind of a weather nerd through my life. I always wish I could have been a meteorologist because I love weather. I love watching it. I also am kind of a nerd as far as looking up weather statistics and weather records. And when you do that, a lot of people don't do that. But that's where you find out, well, the climate's always changing. This is nothing new. But now you have Americans that are afraid. They're afraid. And in fact, I have some sound here for you. These are various Democrats. I've got sound coming from somewhere. I don't know where. Maybe there. There, that was it. Okay. Anyway, these are various Democrats talking about climate change and how dangerous it is. And this is how dangerous their rhetoric is. Listen to this.
And the only existential threat humanity faces, even more frightening than a nuclear war, is global warming going above 1.5 degrees in the next 10 years.
I've heard young leaders talk with me about a term they've coined called climate anxiety. Right? Which is fear of the future and the unknown, of whether it makes sense for you to even think about having children, whether it makes sense for you to think about aspiring to buy a home, because what will this climate be?
Are you kidding me? These are our leaders, so-called leaders. They're scaring people. I mean, are you even wanting to have children or get a home? Oh, please. And Biden, President Biden, something that's far more dangerous than nuclear war and climate change. The planet's going to heat up by a degree in 20 years. Oh, please. And that's the biggest threat in our world right now. Climate change over anything else. It's ridiculous, but it gets even more ridiculous because, there's even more. Let me play this and then we'll.
Climate change is the crisis of our lifetime.
Yeah.
We have an obligation to future generations to make sure that we have a planet for them to live on.
That's what's boiling the oceans, creating these atmospheric rivers and the rain bombs and sucking the moisture out of the land and creating the droughts and melting the ice.
I love Al Gore, man. That's some fine acting right there. Boiling oceans. Well, you won't believe it, but there is a Republican out there. Yes, a Republican governor is trying to lead the way in getting off fossil fuels. I'll tell you all about him coming up. It's 6:45, time to check the roads with the Paul Winkler WTN Traffic Center. That'd be the Paul Winkler WTN Traffic Center. Thank you. Thank you much, Jack. Looked like it's going to be a carbon copy of the last couple of days, partly cloudy. Look for a high near 80 today. Right now, it is 59 degrees clear on Nashville's Music Row at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And we're talking about they have a new poll now that Americans believe that the climate crisis is causing harm to people in the U.S. And some of the crazy things I've heard from people about climate change, especially just this past year, have really just blown me away. I mean, there was one lady up in Kentucky. It was a weather special I was watching about tornadoes. And she was a younger girl, young mother, single mother. And she had survived a tornado, her and her child, and thank goodness. And, I was watching her, and I just put this to youth and to the fact that she's probably just listening to people like Al Gore that are scaring the living hell out of her. But she said, we've got to do something. We never used to have tornadoes like this in Kentucky. And I thought, that's not true. You have. 1974 saw one of the worst outbreaks in the country, and Kentucky got hit with a lot of tornadoes. But I looked at her age, and I thought, she doesn't know any better because she wasn't around then. If you look at weather records, that will tell you everything. This state, Tennessee, one year did not have a summer. It really didn't. When I first heard it, I thought, some old folks tale. No, the more digging I did, and I have to thank the old gentleman for it. I don't think he's with us anymore. Henry Reagan used to be in Dixon, Tennessee. He always did this historic thing on his show on the small station out there. And I used to love to listen to it because he had a lot of interesting facts. And he had that fact. And like I said, I didn't want to believe it, but it was true. In fact, it got so cold here that they even drove on the Cumberland River, if you believe that or don't. But there's a Republican governor in Wyoming, Mark Gordon. He's facing criticism right now for his recent comments, pledging to reduce his state's carbon emissions and saying there was urgency to addressing the warming climate. Another one that's fallen for it. He made his comments during a talk at the Harvard Kennedy School's Institute of Politics in Massachusetts on Monday, promoting the Decarbonizing the West initiative. He established his role as chairman of the Western Governors Association in 2018. He ran for governor on the all of the above energy platform and has since promoted green energy development. He said Wyoming is the first that has said that we will be carbon negative. He's a Republican. He further pointed to carbon capture, sequestration, forest management, nuclear energy, and geothermal technology as solutions to addressing carbon emissions. Republican Wyoming State Representative John Baer, who chairs the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, blasted the governor, saying the state couldn't afford to give an inch to anti-fossil fuel interests. Baer noted that Wyoming is highly dependent on its fossil fuel industry, which is among the largest in the nation. In fact, I was embarrassed. That's what Baer told Fox Digital in an interview. He said, I was embarrassed that our chief executive would go to a pro-Hamas, pro-China school and appease an anti-fossil fuel crowd. I was embarrassed that someone who campaigned as a conservative is ready to close the coffin on coal, oil, and gas in his state. He has given in to the AOC and Al Gore hysteria that is, in fact, disputed science. Amen. Talk to scientists. Because I've talked to a few. And the ones that dispute Al Gore are the most common sense scientists I've ever talked to. And plus, they didn't get any money from the government for these studies. That's the big equating factor here. Always follow the money, and that will tell you everything. But climate change, the climate's always going to change. And if you're worried about it, stop worrying. You're going to be fine. Have children. Buy that house if you can afford it. But don't stop living your life. I can safely assure you that we are not going to die from climate change. That's not our biggest worry. We have a lot more to worry about, and we'll tell you all about it on this radio station. In fact, next hour, we got some great stories for you, including the UAW. They got a deal from Ford. We'll tell you about that coming up on Nashville's Morning News. Johnny B sitting in for Dan Mandis on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
A Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. Which one should we do? A lot of people struggle over this particular decision. And I'll just give you a couple tools to figure out what might be better for you. Think about it this way. Let's say if I had $1,000 that I was thinking about investing, that was income, $1,000 of income. With an IRA, let's say that you're in a 30% tax bracket. Let's say there is such a thing. And you want to put this money in an IRA. You're going to save $300 in taxes. Now, if you go post-tax with like a Roth IRA, this is how much goes into the Roth IRA. Now, let's say that later on down the road, we have this money and it didn't grow at all, just to keep the math really simple. And let's say that at some point in the future, you're in a lower tax bracket, because the way our tax system works is that your first income is taxed at a really low rate, and then you get up into higher rates, 10%, 12%, 22%, and so on and so forth. It gets higher. If you're earning income and you're at that particular tax rate up there, you might want to avoid that tax rate right now and take the income at a later point in time when you're in a lower average tax rate. Now let's say that you're in a 10% bracket down here when you pull the money. How much are you going to pay in taxes? 10% of $1,000 is $100. How much do you get to spend? $900. Well, even though I didn't have growth, I had growth because of the difference between my tax rate here and here. And that's the idea. That's one of the things that we look at. We look at Social Security taxation, income taxation, and a lot of factors that might drive you into higher or lower brackets in the future. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
Mass shooting manhunt, an entire city and surrounding towns under lockdown this morning. A Middle Tennessee school district going above and beyond what is required for student safety wants the legislature to make it a statewide standard. It involves substitute teachers and driving privileges. And the new House Speaker isn't wasting any time in our nation's capital. These stories and more at 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. It is 6:57. Just want to put out a little PSA for you out there for all you drivers in Tennessee. Right now, beginning this month, and should last about a month, but it can last from September to February, it's mating season for deer. So if you're out there in the countryside and you're, say, speeding through the winding roads in the Tennessee countryside, you may want to slow it down a little bit because they will jump out in front of your car when you least expect it. So keep that in mind. We've got a lot more coming up, including the UAW's brand new deal they got with Ford. It's 6:58. It's Nashville's Morning News. Johnny B. in for Dan Mandis this morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
7 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Right now, that mass shooting manhunt in Maine. Whit Johnson says there are at least 2 crime scenes, 20 people believed to be dead.
Yeah, an active shooter. We have multiple injuries.
The first 911 call coming in around 7 p.m. from a local bowling alley hosting a youth night for kids bowling league. Authorities releasing surveillance images showing the suspected gunman armed with a rifle where he began his killing spree. The suspect then traveling about 4 miles to the second shooting scene at a local bar and restaurant. Dozens injured.
The city of Lewiston and surrounding communities are on lockdown. Businesses and schools closed. Rhiannon Alley continues her team coverage.
Authorities did not reveal a motive overnight. The ATF is among the agencies responding. President Biden and Attorney General Garland have been briefed.
Authorities say before being treated at that mental health facility over the summer, Robert Card threatened to carry out a shooting at a National Guard facility in Saco, Maine.
Robert Card, the person of interest mentioned in this case. Stay with Super Talk 99.7 WTN for continuing coverage. Right now in Middle Tennessee, the Rutherford County School District pushing for state lawmakers to require additional training for substitute teachers. Here's Channel 4's Ryan Breslin.
They say it will enhance school security for the subs since there's no current requirement for it. And they say they have substitutes in their schools on a daily basis. They're also adding another part to this around school threats. Right now, they don't believe the punishment for a student making a threat is enough to stop them from doing it. They're proposing that a student's driver's license be revoked if they make a school threat. That is also part of a resolution that they are wanting to approve tonight to then send to state lawmakers.
Now, Channel 4 says Rutherford County School Board member Tammy Sharp wants to take the resolution to the County Commission and the Tennessee State School Board Association. Over to the nation's capital, Liz Landers says the new Speaker of the House isn't wasting any time.
After 3 weeks without a Speaker of the House, a little-known Republican Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson was elected to the top position. Johnson taking the dais as the Speaker for the first time.
We stand at a very dangerous time. I'm stating the obvious. We all know that. The world is in turmoil. But a strong America is good for the entire world.
Johnson becomes the 56th Speaker of the House. Every Republican president voted for him. Democrats have criticized Johnson, a close ally of former President Trump, for voting against certification of the 2020 election.
First vote under Speaker Johnson yesterday was a resolution supporting Israel. The House must also take up funding for Ukraine, something Johnson's questioned in the past. Another crucial task is that looming government shutdown, government funding set to expire November 17th. Market Numbers report. Market Numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Online at beaconcm.com. Futures are down ahead of the opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures off 124. S&P futures down 29. NASDAQ down 142. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Thank you, Mr. Announcer. It's 7:08. It's Nashville's Morning News. Dan Mandis has earned some time off. Johnny B in his place, along with Ken Weaver in the newsroom, and Mason Fleming driving the ship. 615-737-9986. That's the Super Text line. You can, you can converse with us that way. You can also watch us on Super Talk TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, X, Twitch, and, of course, our own website, 997WTN.com. If you like to watch, why you would, I have no idea. But, hey, we appreciate it anyway. 7:09 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We're going to keep you up to date on the active shooter situation up in Maine. Very, very horrible story. The man of interest is Robert Card. He's the one they are looking for in the mass shooting up in Maine. And in fact, the authorities now have expanded their lockdown, and they think they believe the person of interest may know the cops' movements. So they're going to keep everything like that. We'll just keep you updated. The more we hear, and of course, Ken will have any updates at any time. So keep it right here at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We're hoping for a better outcome. But a lot of people injured. I think somewhere around 20, 22 people have been killed. I've heard different numbers. Of course, that's the way it goes with these situations. We get all kinds of information. Some of it will not be accurate, so we're just trying to do this as best we can, but we'll keep you updated. In fact, at bottom of the hour and anytime Ken will break in if anything happens. So just to let you know that. Also, a lot of other things in the news we'd like to share with you that, well, I thought you'd be interested in. I don't know if you guys heard this or not, but Israel has decided to remove any references to Greta Thunberg from its educational curricula after the Swedish climate activist expressed support for Gaza while refusing to condemn Hamas for its massacre of more than 1,400 people. The majority of those were, of course, civilians. With the Jewish state arguing that she is unable to differentiate between good and evil and therefore can no longer be portrayed as a role model for students. I never thought of her like that from day one. I've tried to be very, very sensitive about what I say about her because she was a youngster, but I never felt like, I just felt like something was off. And I've always felt like that with her, that she's got some problems. But anyway, that's what's happened in Israel. No more mention of Greta Thunberg, and I don't think there's going to be. Also, there's a Beijing-backed green energy firm that is expanding in the U.S., and they say it poses a serious national security risk to the United States. It's a Chinese... it's a Chinese government. It's basically this company that makes batteries. It's CATL. And they are making all kinds of strategic acquisitions and partnerships with Western automakers and utility companies. And because of that, this is amplifying the fear that China will have too much access to our grid, which troubles me as well. They said CATL's reach, if I can say it, which has grown through its acquisitions and partnerships. These connections serve as potential access points for intelligence collection, cyber espionage, and sabotage by compromising the internet-connected public charging infrastructure. CATL could install malware on EVs, electric vehicles, consequently allowing for extended monitoring of countless vehicles and gathering sensitive information about their owners. Furthermore, the company could execute a shutdown of EV charging networks or even disable targeted vehicles through hardware infiltration. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? We have, the president gets an electric vehicle, and the Chinese know how to shut it down. Yeah, I don't understand why we are so stupid when it comes to dealing with China, but we are. We act like they're our friends and they're not. The report further recommends policies to address potential infrastructure and data security risks posed by CATL and other CCP-linked firms expanding in America. It states that U.S. policymakers should scrutinize and potentially limit CATL's joint ventures and partnerships with U.S. firms, imploring them to create stringent oversight protocols protecting Americans' data and sensitive U.S. technologies. Good luck on that one. So we'll have to watch that story as it seems like the Biden administration is just welcoming in everybody that hates us to take over and know exactly what's going on in our country. Very odd. And, of course, the UAW made a deal with Ford, and we'll give you the details on that after we check the traffic at the Paul Winkler WTN Traffic Center. Thank you much, Jack. It looks like it's going to be partly cloudy once again today, a carbon copy of the last couple of days, high near 80 degrees. Currently 60 degrees and clear on Nashville's Music Row at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Get ready because they say the beginning of next week or sometime during next week, it's really going to turn cold. In fact, a couple of days I saw in the extended forecast that they were calling for highs in the 50s and lows around 30. So, yeah, it's going to – cold weather is coming in, baby, so get ready for that. The United Auto Workers, they have announced a tentative agreement with the Ford Motor Company to end its strike, and they say they've secured massive wage hikes for auto workers and a right to strike whenever the automaker closes a plant. All right. And this happened in fact, last night. UAW officials Sean Fain and Chuck Browning announced the agreement, which will see auto workers return to their jobs at Ford while the deal makes its way through the ratification process. According to the UAW Ford agreement, auto workers will see more in base wage increases than they have seen in the last 22 years at the auto company. Specifically, the agreement authorizes 25% in base wage increases through April 2028 and will raise top wages by more than 30% to more than $40 an hour. Starting wages will be raised by 68% to more than $28 an hour. The agreement states, Fain and Browning said Ford's lowest paid workers will have their wages raised by more than 150% over the tenure of the 4-year agreement. According to Fain, he said, we won things that nobody thought was possible. The agreement will reinstate benefits that auto workers at Ford have not enjoyed since the Great Recession, such as cost of living allowances, a 3-year wage progression, and an elimination of wage tiers among union workers. It also includes a right to strike whenever Ford closes a plant in the United States. UAW officials consider this provision a historic win because the union has never been given the right to strike over plant closures. To me, that makes no sense. Doesn't make any sense at all. To strike after a plant closes. Okay. I understand wanting to make more money. I think we all do. But as I've said many times during this whole strike, the workers did it to themselves. They voted for someone that wanted to destroy their industry, and they are destroying their industry. And the UAW, I mean, they can applaud and say, look what great work we've done. But look at what the climate is as far as our economy. If you're going to pay people more money, well, then you're going to have to raise prices. And look at the price of automobiles today. Yeah, the workers' wages may go up, but how about the customers? That's what everybody's not looking at, what this is going to do to the market itself. All of this was created by the Biden administration trying to mandate electric vehicles. That's where all this started because they got government grants, they got government money, everybody got greedy, everybody wanted a piece of the pie, and I can't blame employees for wanting to see a raise. And I'm not totally against unions. I'm not a big fan of unions. But the reason I'm not a fan of some unions, it's when they do this kind of stuff. Like strike if a plant closes. What good's that going to do? It's not going to do any good at all. It doesn't do anybody any good. If a plant closes, that means they failed. And this happens in business every day. But for some reason, we've gotten into the mindset that the government should bail all these businesses out. And that's not pure capitalism. That's crony capitalism or that's socialism. When the government gets involved. If you want to see business really thrive, tell the government to get out of the way. And it will. That's what the great thing about the American free market has always been that no one ever looks at. Let the free market decide. Let the free market decide what they want. And they don't want electric vehicles, and that's why you're in this position you're in today. The UAW may be celebrating today, but we'll have to look down the line because I don't think the celebration is going to last long. Because car sales are not what they used to be, and they're really going to get bad if the prices keep going up. Because that's the problem right now with this country and with this administration. Prices on everything have gone up so high that the average American can't afford it anymore. But you can afford us. We're free. Keep it right here. Nashville's Morning News. Johnny B. in for Dan Mandis this week. He'll be back on Monday. We'll be back with more coming up next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey everybody, Dan Mandis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
Manhunt for a mass killer, an entire city and surrounding towns under lockdown. This story and more coming up at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Brother Ken. It is 7:28 on Nashville's Morning News, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The Super Talk will continue all day long. Chris Hand coming up at 9 a.m., 12 noon. You have Murphy Show. And then, as you go home this afternoon, you take the drive with Brian Wilson. It's all right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Going to the Super Text line, 0348 asked me, he said, Johnny, I don't see why you're so surprised at the Chinese, what they're doing to America when they already own the White House and a lot of Congress. And I said, I'm not surprised at all. I'm PO'd about it. And that's the problem. Our government has basically propped up China, and they continue to do so. That's why Donald Trump has been so appealing to a lot of working Americans, because he seems to be the only president that we've had that's effectively tried to deal with China. He effectively tried to get our illegal immigration under control. He's been the only one. And how sad is that? Out of all the people that we've put through to try to change things in this country, it was Donald J. Trump of all of them that actually tried to do something. Things that make you go, We'll be back with much more. Ken Weaver is next with the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$7:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Now to that massive manhunt in Maine for an armed and dangerous killer. It happened in Maine's second largest city. Pierre Thomas says it involves hundreds of state and federal law enforcement, as well as FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals, the Secret Service.
Tactical teams will also be made available, as well as behavioral scientists and other experts as needed. Sources say this is receiving the highest level of attention from not only the Attorney General, FBI Director, Homeland Security Secretary, but also the President himself. I'm told this is literally an all-hands-on-deck situation. It's the worst mass shooting of the year and believed to be the worst mass shooting since the massacre of those children in Uvalde in May of 2022.
Person of interest, Robert Card, has a history of military service, is a firearms expert, and was institutionalized over the summer for hearing voices. Later today in Middle Tennessee, the Rutherford County School Board expected to vote on a resolution asking for a state law to take away a student's driver's license if he or she makes threats against schools. School Board member Tammy Sharp telling News 2 she went to State Rep Robert Stevens about it.
But it has to be something that's going to say, hey, we're going to take one of your privileges away if you do this. So he was the one that came up. He goes, well, let's tie it to the driver's license.
Sharp says she's looking to bring the resolution up to the county commissioners and the Tennessee School Board Association as well. The Rutherford County School Board, again, will vote on that resolution tonight. There could be an end of the strike at Ford. Here's Union President Sean Fain.
We reached a tentative agreement with Ford. For months, we've said that record profits mean record contracts. And UAW family, our stand-up strike has delivered.
It would include a 25% pay raise over 4 years. Ford offered 9%. Still no deal with GM and Stellantis. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath, do this one thing for me. So won't you take me back to Tennessee, where southern streams are flowing free. Me and my always be right at home in Tennessee. Right at home in the woods of Tennessee. Right at home in Tennessee. Awesome.
7:38. It is Nashville's Morning News. Johnny B in for Dan Mandis. Dan is returning on Monday. He's got some family issues he's dealing with, and our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. Everything's cool, though. Dan will be back on Monday. We're looking forward to him being here. We miss him around here at the big Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And we love you being involved with us. You can, of course, super text us, 615-737-9986. You can also watch us on Super Talk TV at Facebook Live, YouTube, X, and Twitch, and, of course, 997WTN.com. Got chastised on the super text line, because every now and then when I mention X, I'll say formerly known as Twitter, because, there's some people out there that don't get it. And some guy says, for the love of God, please stop saying formerly Twitter. Well, so we're trying to help people out here, dude. I'm sorry I'm getting on your nerves. But you're not the first in line. I get a lot of people's nerves. Hell, I may get on Mason's nerves. Who knows? That's okay. He keeps it well hidden if I do. But anyway, lots going on in the news. Ken's going to keep us updated on the manhunt in Maine for this guy that mass shooting again. And this one, I think it's somewhere, they're mentioning between 16 to 22 people that have been killed and many, many more injured. And they are on a lockdown up there. And they are looking for this man. The person of interest is named Robert Card. And we're going to keep you updated on that, on what's happening there, and any updates we get, we will let you know. And, of course, they're at the top of the hour, and also Kim breaks in whenever there is breaking news. So keep it right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Of course, Super Talk is all day long here. 7:40, good morning to you, and a lot going on in the news. Some things we haven't really covered, but I wanted to get into some illegal immigration news for you, because there's a lot. 2 newly arrived illegal aliens, they've been released from jail in Illinois after allegedly shoplifting nearly $2,000 worth of clothes from a Macy's store. They come from Venezuela, and their names are Abel Barrios Esteva, 20 years old, and Rafael Meda Torres, 25 years old. They were arrested and charged this week with burglary and retail theft after allegedly stealing about $1,700 worth of clothing, merchandise from Macy's in Oak Brook, Illinois. According to police, officers responded to the retail theft at Macy's on Monday, where they identified the two as having alleged stolen 6 pieces of clothing worth over $300. And while the officers initially took Barrios Esteva into custody, he broke free and fled on foot. How does that happen? Following the pursuit on foot, officers took Barrios Esteva into custody. Meanwhile, officers also arrested Meda Torres, accusing him of stealing from the Macy's 13 pieces of clothing worth more than $1,400. Since being charged, both of these illegal aliens, who had been living in Chicago, had been released on bail with electronic ankle monitoring. You can't make this stuff up. The state of Illinois is a sanctuary state that prohibits local law enforcement from turning criminal illegal alien suspects over to immigration and customs enforcement agents for deportation. Who wouldn't love coming to this country for that? You break into the country free of charge. Nobody does. In fact, they welcome you. They process you. They grant you right in. And then you go up to a sanctuary place like Chicago. You steal some clothes and you get away with it. All you get is an ankle monitor. Who wouldn't love this country? Man, I love this country. Everything's free. It reminds me of one time when I was in it was between marriages. It was when I was a single man. I was at a laundromat in Bellevue. It was an early Saturday morning. And after I'd been there a while, it got a little more crowded. Well, two gentlemen came in who were obviously Latino. And they were obviously not from this country because they could not speak English at all. But as I was washing my clothes, I had my soap up on the washer. Well, it came time to dry, so I'm getting them out of the washer and putting them in the dryer. Went back to get my soap. The soap was gone. Now I looked around the laundromat. Well, here were the two Hispanic gentlemen. They had my soap and were using it. We had some words about it. They didn't understand anything I said other than they could tell I was a little perturbed that they had taken well, not a little. Back in those days, I was a lot perturbed that they had taken my soap. And I basically got it back from them, but it was like, and then it started hitting me. No wonder they feel that way, because they felt like, hey, I could just traipse right across the country. Hell, everything's free here. And they must really feel that way now, the way this administration's acting. Hey, come on in. I do think that mindset does happen. But that's what that reminds me of. It just, you made it easy for them to come in. They think everything's easy here. Boy, do they have another thing coming. There's more illegal immigration stuff in the news, and we've got them for you after we check the traffic from the Paul Winkler WTN Traffic Center. It's 7:45. Thanks, Jack. Looking at our weather forecast, it's a carbon copy of the last couple of days. Partly cloudy with a high around 80, 81 degrees this afternoon. Looking for sunny skies right now. 60 degrees on Nashville's Music Row at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And get ready for next week. They say it's going to be really cold coming up around Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Talking about illegal immigration, because it's in the news, man. It's everywhere. A top official at President Joe Biden's Department of Health and Human Services says they cannot definitely say how many unaccompanied alien children the agency remains in contact with after they are released to adult sponsors in the United States. During a hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday, Senator Josh Hawley questioned Office of Refugee Resettlement Director Robin Dunn Marcos on a labor trafficking pipeline of UACs that has exploded under Biden. In particular, earlier this year, it was reported that the New York Times that at least 85,000 UACs have lost contact with HHS officials after they're released to adult sponsors in the U.S. When questioned about how many of the roughly 430,000 UACs have crossed the U.S.-Mexico border on Biden's watch, HHS officials keep in contact with, Marcos said she did not have the figure on hand. They have no idea. In fact, Holly said, how many kids right now? How many are in regular contact with you? Senator, we have a number of different providers across the country, was Dunn Marcos' answer. But what's the number? How many have you in contact? I don't have that specific number. How can you not know? That's what Holly says. Why would you come to this hearing and not know? Respectfully, I would like you to do your job and not release children to human traffickers. Respectfully, that's what I would like. I would like you to not facilitate the largest child trafficking ring in American history. And he's right. See, a lot of people don't realize what happens with these children when they're set loose into the country, they're not settling with some family, some nice family somewhere. They're usually being used as either slave labor or for sexual purposes. And this administration is not keeping track. There have been so many that have crossed the border, millions this year. This administration has no idea what they brought into this country, who's all here, what's being planned, what's being done, and what is really sickening to me is the children. Because the children are being used as pawns. A lot of these children that are coming across the border illegally are being used by the coyotes, by other elements that don't mean any good to the world. And that's what's sad. These are children that are caught. It's not their fault. But this administration not knowing where they're at, not knowing what's happening with them, that is criminal to me. Of course, I think it's criminal that they're just letting people traipse across the border illegally. But it's even worse with the children. So keep that in mind today. The Biden administration has no idea how many kids are in the country and who all are. And then you have other kids, young people, that are like up in Chicago that are, well, they're stealing clothes from clothing stores, and they get away with it. They get away with it. Welcome to America. Unbelievable. It's 7:50. It's Nashville's Morning News. We're glad to have you on board. If you'd like to join in, 615-737-9986. That's the super text line, and we'd love to hear from you. Johnny B. in for Dan Mandis, who returns on Monday. We're back with more after this on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
A Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. Which one should we do? A lot of people struggle over this particular decision. And I'll just give you a couple tools to figure out what might be better for you. Think about it this way. Let's say if I had $1,000 that I was thinking about investing, that was income, $1,000 of income. With an IRA, let's say that you're in a 30% tax bracket. Let's say there is such a thing. And you want to put this money in an IRA. You're going to save $300 in taxes. Now, if you go post-tax with like a Roth IRA, this is how much goes into the Roth IRA. Now, let's say that later on down the road, we have this money and it didn't grow at all, just to keep the math really simple. And let's say that at some point in the future, you're in a lower tax bracket, because the way our tax system works is that your first income is taxed at a really low rate, and then you get up into higher rates, 10%, 12%, 22%, and so on and so forth. It gets higher. If you're earning income and you're at that particular tax rate up there, you might want to avoid that tax rate right now and take the income at a later point in time when you're in a lower average tax rate. Now let's say that you're in a 10% bracket down here when you pull the money. How much are you going to pay in taxes? 10% of $1,000 is $100. How much do you get to spend? $900. Well, even though I didn't have growth, I had growth because of the difference between my tax rate here and here. And that's the idea. That's one of the things that we look at. We look at Social Security taxation, income taxation, and a lot of factors that might drive you in a higher or lower brackets in the future. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or call 615-851-1950.
Well, we just got a new report showing the economy is growing at the fastest rate in nearly 2 years. We got a mass shooter on the run and the second largest city in Maine, and its surrounding communities are on lockdown. A Middle Tennessee school district is going above what is required to make students safe, and it wants the legislature to do it statewide. These stories and more at 8 on Supertalk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. It's 7:56 on Supertalk 99.7 WTN. It's Nashville's Morning News. Johnny B in for vacationing Dan Mandis. Supreme Court, they have stayed a court injunction which effectively restricted the Biden administration from censoring conservative voices online. This is opening the door yet again for conservatives to be targeted and silenced on social media. According to Justice Samuel Alito, he believes the decision is highly disturbing. It will be a threat to the First Amendment. He said the case concerns what two lower courts found to be a coordinated campaign by high-level federal officials to suppress the expression of disfavored views on important public issues. According to Alito, he emphasized that the injunction had kept officials from the Biden administration from either coercing social media companies to engage in such censorship or actively controlling those companies' decisions about the content posted on their platforms. So it looks like, once again, those are going to be, you're going to be throttled on social media. So good luck on that one. The judge said the majority of the court, without any explanation, suspended the effect of that injunction until the court completes its review of this case. And that event won't occur until late in the spring of next year, according to Alito. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Seems like conservatives these days, you have to fight for everything, don't you? Anyway, there's a lot more to cover coming up. Oregon is foregoing testing. Yes, to get out of high school. You won't even have to read anymore. Don't worry about it. We'll have more on that story, plus a lot more. The FBI also on the Biden probe. That hasn't gone away either. We'll have all these stories, plus much more. Ken Weaver News coming up straight up, and keep it right where you've got it. On Nashville's Morning News, Supertalk 99.7 WTN.
8 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. I'm told there's a cool down coming along. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Massive manhunt for another mass killer. Here's Jim Ryan.
An intense multi-state hunt is underway for Robert Card, who's called a person of interest in Wednesday night's mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine. Federal law enforcers tell ABC News that between 16 and 22 people were killed inside 2 businesses. Riley Dumont was at the bowling alley with her daughter when the shooting started.
All I can honestly remember is people sobbing and crying, and people around me were not screaming, but whimpering.
ABC's Rhiannon Alley has more on the 40-year-old Card, who was committed to a mental health facility after saying that he heard voices.
Authorities did not reveal a motive overnight. The ATF is among the agencies responding. President Biden and Attorney General Garland have been briefed.
Authorities say before being treated at that mental health facility over the summer, Robert Card threatened to carry out a shooting at a National Guard facility in Saco, Maine.
Maine State Police have expanded a shelter-in-place advisory beyond Lewiston to nearby Bowdoin, Maine.
Stay with Super Talk 99.7 WTN for continuing coverage. Here in Tennessee, Rutherford County Schools is training substitute teachers to be able to handle lockdowns, even though that is not a requirement for substitute teachers. The school board tonight will also vote on a resolution asking state lawmakers to enact a law that revokes driver's licenses of students if they make threats against schools. School board member Tammy Sharp telling News 2.
I hope if it would deter one person from doing it, that saves us, that trauma from that event from that day.
She plans to take that resolution to the county commission and into the state school board association. In our nation's capital, Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson's a new House Speaker.
The first vote under Speaker Johnson yesterday was a resolution supporting Israel. The House must also take up funding for Ukraine, something Johnson has questioned in the past.
Another crucial task is a looming government shutdown, with government funding set to expire November 17th.
That's Andrea Fujii reporting. And an end could be near for the strike at Ford Motor Company. Union President Shawn Fain announced a tentative agreement last night.
The United Auto Workers Union and Ford have a tentative agreement that would include a 25% pay increase over the 4-year length of the deal, plus cost of living raises. Top of scale workers would make $40 an hour by the end of the contract. Lowest paid workers would get a raise of over 150%. When talks started, Ford was offering 9% pay raises. The deal still has to be approved by Ford's 57,000 union members. If approved, it could pave the way for agreements with workers at the other 2 automakers who are on strike at GM and Stellantis.
That's Alex Stone reporting. And in money news, the government reports the economy grew at a 4.9% rate in the latest quarter. That is the fastest pace in nearly 2 years, and officials say it was fueled by higher wages. Workers and working men and women out there spending money. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Futures are mixed before the opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures up 7, S&P down 10, NASDAQ futures down 68. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Good morning. It's 8:07 on a Thursday. It's Nashville's Morning News. No, I'm not Dan Mandis, but Dan is out. Johnny B in for him, along with Ken Weaver in the newsroom. And, of course, Mason is along with us as well, flying this plane. And looks like it's going to be one of those days. A lot going on in the news. Of course, we're going to keep you up to date on the manhunt in Maine for the serial shooter, basically, up there. The person of interest is Robert Card that they're looking for in Maine. And they have everybody on lockdown, basically, as they keep looking for this guy. Somewhere between 16, 22 people killed, and he injured far more. So a horrible story, but hopefully we'll get a better ending. But that is still going on, and Ken will update us as we see fit to get it on there. And we have several things in the news to cover with you. One, former President Donald Trump yesterday, he was hauled into the witness box. He was taken to task by a judge for violating a partial gag order by making a negative comment to the media about a court official. Judge Arthur Engoron then hit Trump with a $10,000 fine for the violation. That's just upfront whip-out money for that dude. The surprise turn of events came yesterday during yesterday's session of Trump's civil fraud trial on charges that he routinely falsified the values of his real estate properties. So Donald Trump's going to do what Donald Trump wants to do. I think they're going to learn. You can't tell the guy to do much. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to watch. There's a lot more in the news as well that we'd like to cover with you. One comes from Oregon. In fact, an Oregon-based parental rights group said it's not surprising that the Oregon State Board of Education decided to remove the requirement to show proof of mastery in reading, writing, and math through a standardized test in order to graduate from high school. They don't have to do that anymore. And according to the Oregon Moms Union president, Mackenzie Pulliam, she said it's not surprising they've continued to push off the implementation of new graduation requirements. They always say that the agenda has something to do with underserved communities and marginalized students and how the test does them a disservice. Pulliam argued that the tests are designed to serve as a checkpoint to make sure students are ready or to allow them to get extra help if they need it. She said the proficiency rates in Oregon are dismal and they're not getting better. And so part of her wonders, are they removing these standards so that it looks like students are actually doing better? Think you're onto something. The Oregon State Board last week voted unanimously to extend a pause on the requirement for 11th grade students to demonstrate competency in essential skills of writing, reading, and math through either a standardized test or a portfolio of work on top of regular coursework. Students who failed to demonstrate proficiency in the essential skills were to make up for it in their senior year to graduate. Now, they say standardized tests will still be issued. However, the board voted to remove the standardized test as a factor in determining whether students receive their diplomas. Also, students who failed to demonstrate proficiency in the essential skills will not be required to make up for it in their senior year. I've seen it a lot. I'm not saying, because we've at our radio station, we've had some great young people come through. Mason's one of them. But we've had some come through that I could tell that they didn't learn much in college. I think the most they learned was global warming's real, man. Climate change is real. It seems that we have gone from excellence, trying to get excellence out of people, to now it's all identity politics. And I knew this was coming back when we were fighting the income tax. I've told this story before, and I'm going to keep it short. But during that time, we were being besieged by this this group called the Peace and Justice Center in Nashville. And I do believe they're still around, but different people now on it. But as I was looking, Phil Valentine, the late Phil Valentine, had discovered that in the same building as Nashville Peace and Justice Center was the Tennessee Communist Party. And when Phil pointed this out, boy, it was interesting. All of a sudden, the Tennessee Communist Party was erased off the flag there on their website. So that got me into digging. I looked at the Tennessee Communist Party website, and then I noticed there was the Communist Party of the United States. So I looked at their website. And there, of course, they've got the typical bars at the left, different places where you can go for, I don't know, you get your commie swag, I'm a commie T-shirt, whatever. But they had job opportunities, and so I clicked on it. Every job opportunity that was on there were teaching positions in high schools and colleges. And that's when it hit me. I thought, man, they don't need to, this is how they'll destroy America. And it didn't surprise me when I started hearing from people, the same people I tried to warn that this was happening, that looked at me like I was out of my mind. But it did not surprise me when people were telling me that their kids were coming home talking about how great socialism was and how we should get back to that. And that's when I knew. I thought this is not going away. And people are paying great money for this. They're basically using their savings to put their kids through college at a place that's basically telling them everything different than their parents have taught them. So this does not surprise me at all. This does not surprise me at all. It's like we don't care about education anymore. We care about identity politics and more left-leaning politics. And it's gotten to the point to where they have to have safe spaces at college. If somebody comes to the university to speak that they don't agree with, they need a safe space. Are you kidding me? That's what I thought college was all about, was, were ideas and the not arguing, but debating. I thought debate was all about college. That's what college was for, to basically put in your mind of a debate to find a better solution. But instead, all college has become is a propaganda place for a lot of these professors to push their agenda of Marxism. So it doesn't surprise me if your child's coming home from college and doesn't know much of anything other than they basically talk about global warming and climate change and how unfair the world is and all of that. So this does not surprise me of what happens in Oregon. And I pray to God it doesn't go across the country. It's 8:16. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler WTN Traffic Center. Thanks, Jack. Partly cloudy today with a high of 81. Basically a carbon copy of the last couple of days. 62 degrees and sunny on Nashville's Music Row. Just stepped outside a little while ago. Man, it's going to be a beautiful day. Like I said, 62 degrees right now on Nashville's Music Row. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And, you know, over the past couple of weeks, ever since the attack in Israel, it has really blown me away how much hatred toward Israel I have seen in the press and online. And it's not just me. It's also those on the left that happen to be Jewish. The Times of London, the New York Times, Tablet, and the Free Press have all in the past week featured pieces detailing how secular Jews in the West, these are generational liberals who were always supportive of a myriad of social justice causes championed by the progressives, they're now shocked and repulsed by their political allies' dismissal of the violence inflicted on their families in Israel by Hamas. And this has always raised an interesting question to me. I've never understood how somebody who's Jewish could really go for the liberal side because of what's happened over the years, especially with Hitler. You'd think that they'd be all for the freedoms that that the right are offering. But unfortunately, a lot of Jewish people count themselves as liberal. But after October 7th, that could change because it has been widespread among young people, among the press, but there has been a lot of anti-Semitism that have infiltrated our media. And it's sickening, really. You know, and it's people tend to also put Hamas with the Palestinian people. What Hamas is to the Palestinian people is about what the mafia is to a neighborhood. If you could set the Palestinian people free away from Hamas, I think that it would be a better place. And I'm one of these people that wouldn't mind a two-state, Israel and Palestine. But I cannot believe that anyone would see Hamas as being heroes. But there are people like that. And I found it a great thing that Alan Dershowitz said. He was on Newsmax TV's The Record with Greta Van Susteren. He said the gay and trans students for Palestine, because there are students that are like that are saying they're for Palestine, he said they should go volunteer in Gaza. And the thing that's ironic about that, these gay and trans students for Palestine, the people in Israel are far more welcoming to gay and trans. Ask a Muslim what they think of gay or trans. See what answer you get. I guarantee it's going to be far different than what you're going to get from the Israeli. It's 8:21. It's Nashville's Morning News. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
Massive manhunt for a mass killer and an entire city and surrounding communities under lockdown. Also, we've got a brand new economic report to go over with you. Coming up at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Brother Ken Weaver. It's 8:28, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The FBI, they had more than 40 confidential sources with criminal information on Hunter James and President Joe Biden before political pressure might have caused an FBI investigation into the Bidens to be shut down, subject to foreign disinformation. That from Senator Chuck Grassley. He wrote in a Tuesday letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland and FBI Director Christopher Wray. In fact, they said they had proof that the fact one file alleged that Hunter and Joe Biden were each bribed $5 million. Grassley released the file in July, of course, and said the founder of Burisma Holdings bribed Joe and Hunter Biden after then Vice President Biden withheld aid to Ukraine until then President Poroshenko found a prosecutor investigating Burisma. An essential question, according to Grassley, that must be answered is this: did the FBI investigate the information or shut it down? And he said, raising the question that if those sources were improperly shut down, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for the FBI. Boy, it's sad that it is true. The Gang of Four Amigos is coming up at 35 after. Right now, it's time for the news with Ken Weaver on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 8:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Massive manhunt in Maine for Robert Card, a 40-year-old firearms instructor with a military history and mental illness, who's a person of interest in a mass shooting last night.
At least 16 people killed, and behind me is that crime scene, the street blocked off. And if you go halfway down the street, that's where the bowling alley is that was hosting a youth night for children. That's where this suspect began his killing spree. And now an entire community on edge as that killer, considered armed and dangerous, is still on the run.
Whit Johnson reporting the entire city of Lewiston, surrounding communities on total lockdown, businesses and schools closed. Right now in Middle Tennessee, Rutherford County Schools working to get all of its employees trained on what to do during a threat, including substitute teachers, even though substitutes are not required. But the board wants it to be so. So it votes tonight on a resolution for state lawmakers to pass a law for that, also revoking driver's licenses of students if they make threats against schools. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
A disappointing quarterly report from Meta has pulled NASDAQ futures lower going into the trading day. Before the opening bell, Dow futures were down 130 points. The S&P was set to surrender 0.75%. The Dow Jones finished Wednesday 105 points lower, but still barely above 33,000. The Standard & Poor's 500 lost nearly 1.5%. The NASDAQ Composite finished lower by 2.5%. Demand for electric vehicles just isn't keeping up with expectations, as underscored by the dumping of a GM-Honda partnership to develop low-cost EVs. Electric car sales are growing strongly, but higher interest rates are sabotaging plans by car makers and climate regulators to speed up the shift away from gasoline burners. UPS has agreed to buy a reverse logistics firm that handles returns for retailers. The delivery company says label-free returns will soon be available at thousands of UPS locations. The purchase of Happy Returns is expected to close by the end of the year.
All right, 2 minutes into the brand new trading day, and stocks are opening pretty much steady from yesterday. Right now, the Dow is flat. S&P's down just 10. NASDAQ down 30. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath. Do this one thing for me. Say, won't you take me back to Tennessee, where southern streams are flowing free. Me and mine, Lord, will always be right at home in Tennessee, right at home in the woods of Tennessee, right at home in Tennessee.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's going to be a big cool down. Get ready for that. I'm talking temperatures in the 50s for highs and 30 for low.
Better get some bread and milk.
We may have to get that room across the street, Ken.
Oh, please, no.
It's 8:39. Welcome to another edition of Gang of Four Amigos. Ken Weaver, of course, in the newsroom.
Good morning, boys. Yeah.
And, of course, you've got Mason Fleming in my room.
Glad to be here.
I was glad to have you here. And all the way from, I think, Phoenix, none other than Chris Hand. Good morning, Chris.
Hey, what's up, fellas?
What's going on, brother Chris Hand, out there in Arizona?
Yeah, I'm broadcasting from the Turning Point USA studios today. They're kind enough to let me borrow them.
Well, that's very nice. Your voice sounds really good from there, man.
Oh, thank you.
Sounds like that massive heat does a lot to your throat.
Yeah, we don't have to buy bread and eggs out here. No milk. I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah. My sister said, yeah, move out here. And she showed me, and I said, I'm kind of partial to grass.
Oh, my gosh. Phoenix is the hottest city I've ever been to in my life. It's the only place where the wind can blow and the wind is hot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like an hair dryer.
Oh, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Well,
I'm happy to be here.
I remember too, when late Phil Valentine went out there, he said, they told me, he said that it would be hot, but it'd be a dry heat. He said, I don't care what kind of heat it was. He said, I couldn't get cool.
They tell you it's a dry heat, and it doesn't help.
No, it does not.
It's like 130, dry or humid is pretty bad.
Yeah, I don't care what it is.
Right.
It's going to be bad.
You better get in some shade out there, boy.
That's right.
Because,
Yeah,
exactly. It'll
exactly.
burn you real fast out there.
Oh, yes, it will. Yes, it will. Well, since you're out there, Chris, I'll ask you this question. They say a survey of 2,000 adults found that the average American hasn't tried a new restaurant in 5 months. They say 56% of those polled said they were creatures of habit. And I hate to admit it, but I'm probably that person. Once I find a place I like, I'll continually go to it. It's hard to get me to go somewhere new. How about you guys?
Yeah, we're pretty much, the Weaver household's kind of like that. We don't try new places that often because what we ran into specifically, during the pandemic and here afterward is some of the places where we would go, you just couldn't get service.
No.
And it wasn't necessarily that establishment's fault. They didn't have enough staff.
That's true, yeah.
So we just kind of stay with our tried and trues.
Yeah, it seems like for us, whenever we try to go to a new restaurant, it's because it's new and popping. Like we try to go to Firebirds in Murfreesboro.
Oh, yeah, I want to do that too. Yeah.
But it was slammed. They were like, well, the soonest we can get you in is 9 o'clock. And I look at my crew with a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. I was like, it's not going to work, guys.
Well, it's kind of like that. There's a place we like to eat at in Eagleville called Sorelli's. And unless you make reservations, you're going to be, I'm talking a major long wait. And one night we went there and I think we waited outside. And I usually don't do this. So this was for my wife and our friends that I kept my cool and didn't lose my patience because usually that's the case. But it had to be 2-3 hour wait before we got in.
Woof, that's wild.
Yeah,
I don't think I could do that.
No, sir.
No,
I'm gone. If they say a 35-minute wait, I'm gone.
Well, here's something we may want to wait on, guys. Sammy Hagar, for those of you that don't know him, he was the guy that sang I Can't Drive 55. He was also, for a while, the lead singer of Van Halen after David Lee Roth exited. And he's, of course, been known for, making some darn good tequila. Well, now he's ventured into beer. And, yeah, and he's decided it should be made in Detroit. He said, I want to make beer because I know my fans are beer drinkers. He said, I've been pouring tequila down their throats for like 35, 40 years. It's time for a little Mexican-style beer from the Cabo Wabo lifestyle, man.
Made in Detroit.
Yeah, made in Detroit. Mexican-style beer called Red Rocker Lager.
Yeah, if I was drinking Mexican beer, I don't know if I would pick Detroit as the location.
Yes, me. I'm sitting there going, why Detroit? But according to Sammy, hey, man, it's the rock and roll capital of the world, in my opinion. It's an industrial town. Sammy, it's crumbling. It's a blue-collar town. It's my kind of fans town.
The Red Rocker beer. I like the can. I mean, it's a good-looking can. Don't know about Mexican beer in a can, though, man. I don't know. I like it in a bottle.
Yeah.
Don't know if Sammy's going to be able to add much more to it. Especially in Detroit.
Yeah, that's not. I want to make Mexican-style beer in Detroit.
But, hey, I mean, I'll try it. I'll try it.
Stranger things have happened in Detroit.
Yes.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I'm sure, too. In fact, I think that's an understatement, Chris.
I've never had his tequila, by the way. I've
never have either. I heard that Ted Nugent got really drunk on it.
No, not Ted Nugent.
And
Ted doesn't drink.
Ted's a teetotaler, but no, he actually he tried Sammy's tequila.
Well, he's a teetotaler, so he's not used to it.
Yeah, so I'm sure he got messed
Probably
up.
hit him pretty hard.
I'd hate to. That's something I would not want to be around.
Yeah, Ted Nugent drunk?
No.
Goodness.
No, thank you. Woo. Well, in fact, this goes to another thing that I wanted to cover was they say 71% of Americans need a day to prepare for guests.
They need what?
They need at least a day.
Oh, to prepare for guests.
That are coming to their house.
Psych yourself up.
Yeah, I guess.
Here comes mom and dad.
I need about a week.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been to a couple places where they should have taken a couple before they had us over.
Well, what's really funny was that, we have a 3-bedroom house. But we do not have a guest. We did at one time. We don't have a guest bed anywhere in the house. And I asked Glenn about that. She goes, if we don't have a bed, they won't come.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
We're in the same boat, man. We got 3 bedrooms, and I mean that's it. We're in tight quarters in the Weaver household. So it's like whenever my family does come out, somebody's sleeping on a big blow-up mattress downstairs.
And bitching about it.
Yeah, the son, my youngest, the son's in the floor. And he's not too happy about it, but, we make it work.
Well, and what was great about my father-in-law coming, and I'm saying that facetiously, but because, I love the man, but he is a control freak.
Mm-hmm.
And every time he would come to the house, I'd watch him outside. And he would inspect the house. And every now and then I would see him stop and shake his head.
Whoa.
And then one time what was interesting.
Who is my daughter married?
And then what was interesting one time, Glenn and her father got into it. And she gets mad and takes off, and he looks at me and he goes, "She's so stubborn. I don't know where she gets it from." And I'm trying to stifle a laugh because I'm thinking I'm looking right at him.
Yeah.
You're like, no idea. No idea.
What about you, brother Chris? I mean, you got 4 little ones.
Yeah,
dude.
you do.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need at least a day or two.
Yeah.
I mean, we I feel like we need a day just to move about normally,
It is rough having guests, though, isn't it? I mean, it kind of upends everything.
We'll usually move my daughter to a walk-in closet and then give away her bedroom, and she sleeps on an air mattress.
Yeah.
And then the in-laws can get her bedroom, or we pile them all in the boys' room.
There you go. I tell you what, man, my wife's closet. I need to just get rid of everything I have, let her move into my closet, because I would make her closet my man cave. It is that big. It's like a room in itself. And I have often said, I could put a chair and a TV in here.
Oh, that's the way it is with
Get one of
our
those
closet.
chairs with a refrigerator.
Yeah.
On the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Where's Dad?
A chair with a refrigerator in it?
Yeah, you sit on it. And like the refrigerator is, remember George Costanza had one.
Oh, yeah, he did.
That's cool. I've never seen that.
Where's Dad? Don't know. Check Mom's closet. And it's locked.
Why is he in there so long?
Be careful. All these weird rumors would start coming out about Ken Weaver.
Exactly.
Yes, Ken Weaver in the
I come
closet.
out and I don't have a beard.
I just...
I don't have a beard, and there's a bunch of crumbs on my shirt. I'm actually wearing one.
He's actually wearing a shirt.
Yeah.
I never thought. Anyway, Chris, of course, you're doing your show live today from Phoenix. What's coming up on that show?
So we're going to talk about the mass shooting last night in Maine. Obviously, we're going to go through Mike Johnson and President Biden's remarks with the Australian president. Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Is it a president? It's Prime Minister. Prime Minister.
Prime Minister. Yeah.
Those crazy Aussies and their English prison nation. You know? We'll talk about them.
I bet you this is going to be very interesting.
Oh, yes. It is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Narratives are already being cultivated.
Oh, yeah.
Golly. Well, man, you're doing a good job on your show. I'm a big fan. So.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for letting me plug in from Arizona.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's cool. What's the weather like there today?
We're gonna have it's gonna be like high 80s, so not terrible.
That's not too bad. Yeah.
No, it could be worse. Trust me.
Yes, it could.
Believe that.
Oh, I do believe that.
It gets chilly at night in the desert. It'll
my
get chilly
gosh.
out there at night.
It's the wonkiest town I've ever been to weather-wise.
It's just the wonkiest town, from what I understand. I don't think I've ever been to Phoenix, but the things I've heard about it, it sounds like a very interesting town.
It is interesting.
That's about all you can say.
It's interesting.
It's a very interesting.
No, I like it. Good people. I'm surrounded in a building with a bunch of conservatives. It's a good place to be.
You're in good company then, brother Chris.
Well, and Chris, what we need to do, you and I need to take a Ken too. We'll go out there, Ken, and we'll go visit Waylon's grave.
All right.
Yeah, because he's somewhere up there.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway,
boys trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, fellas, look out for the scorpions.
Can you imagine us taking Dan Mandis to Waylon Jennings' grave? I don't think so.
We're going on a boys trip to a graveyard.
Yeah.
That's where we're heading, Dan. Anyway, Chris, we're looking forward to the show. Thanks for being with us this morning. And thank you guys for hanging in with us. It's 8:51. Nashville's Morning News. Johnny B sitting in for Dan Mandis on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
A Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. Which one should we do? A lot of people struggle over this particular decision. And I'll just give you a couple tools to figure out what might be better for you. Think about it this way. Let's say if I had $1,000 that I was thinking about investing, that was income, $1,000 of income. With an IRA, let's say that you're in a 30% tax bracket. Let's say there is such a thing. And you want to put this money in an IRA. You're going to save $300 in taxes. Now, if you go post-tax with like a Roth IRA, this is how much goes into the Roth IRA. Now, let's say that later on down the road, we have this money and it didn't grow at all, just to keep the math really simple. And let's say that at some point in the future, you're in a lower tax bracket, because the way our tax system works is that your first income is taxed at a really low rate, and then you get up into higher rates, 10%, 12%, 22%, and so on and so forth. It gets higher. If you're earning income and you're at that particular tax rate up there, you might want to avoid that tax rate right now and take the income at a later point in time when you're in a lower average tax rate. Now let's say that you're in a 10% bracket down here when you pull the money. How much are you going to pay in taxes? 10% of $1,000 is $100. How much do you get to spend? $900. Well, even though I didn't have growth, I had growth because of the difference between my tax rate here and here. And that's the idea. That's one of the things that we look at. We look at Social Security taxation, income taxation, and a lot of factors that might drive you into higher or lower brackets in the future. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
you.